Penang National Park lies in the top left-hand corner of Penang Island. From the entrance, a broad surfaced path leads into the park. This path runs along the edge of the forest just above the beach. Walking into the park, the forest is on the left and the beach and the sea on the right. On my first morning, the first thing I found was long hurrying columns comprising millions of Hospitaliformes termites. As you can see, each worker in its jaws is carrying a little bundle. These consist of a mixture of algae and lichens. Each miniature cargo is harvested from high up on the trunks of the forest tree. Such busy columns are a common sight, but everyone I met who saw them thought they were ants. These are not closely related. The static mass of workers at extreme top right are harvesting the algae. When the bundle is complete, it will hand it across to another termite, a cargo carrier. This worker will then join the column, busily moving back to the nest. The cargo they're carrying is not used directly as food. Instead, it's used as compost on which the termites cultivate a special fungus. It's this that comprises their sole diet. On most days, along the same section of the path, there was a group of spectacled leaf monkeys. I think this is my favourite among the Southeast Asian monkeys. Just look at those faces, they're so attractive. All leaf monkeys have to devote a great deal of each day to eating enough just to keep them alive. This is because leaves are rather poor in nutrients. Many leaves also contain defensive chemicals such as alkaloids and tannins, rendering them poisonous or difficult to digest. The younger the leaf, the lower the concentration of defensive chemicals. So the monkeys have to cover a lot of ground, selecting enough suitable trees with leaves that they can actually eat. This is one of a group of leaf monkeys in which the babies are conspicuous for their bright apricot orange coloration. Like most baby monkeys, they're full of life. They love to explore their surroundings. As in many tropical monkeys, the babies are much coveted by many of the adult members of the group. This gives rise to a great deal of baby swapping. But as seen here, the new guardian then suddenly changes its mind. At first it seemed eager to claim the baby, but then it simply dumps it and hurries off, leaving the original guardian to reclaim it. Then it too makes off, carrying the baby clinging to its underside in characteristic monkey manner. Around the middle of the day, when it gets hotter, activity winds down. They spend their time grooming and resting. This was a favourite spot for a 2-hour nap in the early afternoon. Down below, on the ground, the long-tailed macaques are also taking it easy in the heat. For these adult macaques, social grooming is of great importance. But the youngsters don't bother with such niceties. It's now so hot that they find the cool waters of a nearby creek irresistible. Young macaques always spend a great deal of their day playing, but now they simply add to the fun by playing in the water. They are natural swimmers and obviously enjoy splashing around, but you're unlikely to see a spectacled leaf monkey joining them for a quick dip. The same area of creek was also frequently used by small water monitors. When swimming, note how the legs are held back flush against the body. Propulsion is via the tail. Really large monitors, such as this one, were more common in the sea. Judging by the forked tongue flicking in and out, it's detected something edible, and now it's trying to track it down. As in snakes, monitor lizards smell with their tongue. Every time the tongue is retracted, each of the forked sections is inserted into the twin passageways of the Jacobson's organ. Situated at the tip of the snout, this is an extremely sensitive detector of scents. It managed to pick up the smell of this almost fleshless lump of bone from some considerable distance. The intended meal was quite bulky. The monitor was obviously having problems swallowing it. It finally succeeded just as my camera battery gave out. So unfortunately I missed the vital moment. After changing batteries, I did film this. The monitor is now vigorously using its tongue to check that nothing edible has been left behind on the sand. This monitor is a really large specimen. When adult, they can reach a length of more than 2.5 metres, around 9 feet. Every morning for around 10 days, I found one or two of these beautiful, spectacular metallic wasps rushing around on the hot surface of the sand. Their long legs help keep the body elevated above the worst of the heat zone, so they can keep working at top speed in conditions that would kill most insects. And speed is essential. Her life is short. She only has about 2 weeks to locate and then dig out the subterranean larva of a certain species of cricket. Using her sophisticated sense organs, she's finally located the front door of a shallow burrow. Now's the time for some energetic digging. It turned out that these crickets build an entrance and an exit. After spending a couple of minutes digging at the entrance, she ran across the sand and started looking for the exit. After locating it, she started a new excavation. Suddenly, a cricket shot out and landed some distance away. The response was instant. She plunged across, curved her abdomen round, and thrust her sting deep into the cricket's body. After just a few seconds, her victim ceased struggling. Its vibrating legs and antennae became still. But the cricket wasn't dead, it was merely paralysed. It is destined to provide a supply of fresh food for the wasp's larvae. Most solitary wasps dig a nest burrow in which to entomb their victim. But here that's not necessary. There's a handy empty burrow lying close by. The cricket shot out in panic when it detected the wasp coming. So now it returns home, its limp body dragged by its conqueror. All it has to do is seal up the entrance and exit, leaving the cricket entombed inside. I saw several half-grown nymphs end up like this. But both the adult crickets that were attacked used their powerful back legs to kick the wasp away, and they survived. As well as this wasp, the top of the beach is also home to numerous tiger beetles. The males spend a lot of their time using their large jaws to grip the female around the rear of her thorax. The female has a special groove, the coupling sulcus, which enables the male to hold on more securely, during attacks by rival males, for example. While he's mounted, the male constantly vibrates his antennae, presumably to keep the female interested and cooperative. This is of vital importance, because he cannot mate unless the female offers up her genitalia for connection. Unfortunately, the females constantly seem to get fed up with the rider on their back. Their first ploy is to use body vibrations to persuade him to leave. This stimulates a bout of extra vigorous antennal vibration by the male. If body vibrations don't work, the female raises the stakes. She starts bucking her body in an attempt to throw him off physically. But that's where the male's jaw clamp comes in handy. It's just not easy to break his grip. By the way, just look at those beautiful iridescent colours. These are visible to the camera, but not to the naked eye. Away from the beach, the forest has few flowers. This is one of the only ones I saw. Butterflies were disappointingly scarce. This is a common jezebel. Here, a rustic is feeding on a bird dropping. This was the most frequent butterfly. I spent 12 days filming in the park, but only once, after a night of heavy rain, did a giant millipede turn up. Although they look threatening, these massive beasts are completely harmless. They have no venomous bite as they feed on vegetable matter. Note how the legs move in waves as the millipede walks along. The giant golden orb weaver is usually pretty common in Southeast Asia, but this is the only one I've found. Her huge web, with its golden silk, is strung across the forest path. She's moving down towards an insect which she's previously caught and wrapped in silk. After feeding on it for a while, she decides to add some more silk wrapping. She's only interested in insects of a certain size, big enough to make a proper meal. Really tiny insects are ignored. She just leaves them stuck on the web. But they don't go to waste. They become a target for one special kind of wasp, there, flying across from left to right. Most social wasps catch their own living prey, but that's pretty hard work and it can take quite a long time. These tiny wasps specialise on searching the webs of golden orb weavers for prey which has been left behind as too small to bother with. Note how these two workers fly up to and inspect any small speck left in the web. This one lands to take a closer look, but it turns out not to be something edible. But this was not the only orb weaver in the forest. I spent some time searching tree trunks for one of my favourites, the ornate orb weaver, Herenia ornatissima. Although this is quite a large female, she's beautifully camouflaged. She spends her life closely pressed against a silk pad on the trunk. She's often accompanied by her tiny brownish mate. He stays around to fend off any intruding males. All this takes place beneath the web in a relatively confined space. This web is quite long and narrow. It's placed just above the bark of the tree, seen here from the side, looking underneath. All the spider action takes place beneath it. Except, that is, when the female engages in repairing gaps in the silk. When an insect becomes trapped in the web, she removes it. Then she returns to her silken pad in order to feed. The victim here is a cricket. Directly opposite her, on the other side of the trunk, I found this beautifully camouflaged wasp's nest. It's about half as long again as my middle finger. It's constructed from so-called paper derived from plant fibres, often wood. The worker wasp gathers this material in its jaws and brings it back to the nest. The length of these workers is about the same as the width of my little fingernail, so they're pretty small. Concealed within the nest, there are rows of cells. These contain developing larvae and pupae of the wasps. Eventually, space for these begins to become short. This is the signal for the workers to begin to extend the outer envelope downwards. The worker on the left arrives carrying a parcel of wood pulp in its jaws. These then become the tools to apply the pulp delicately to the leading edge of the nest. Meanwhile, the worker on the right completes its task and moves off. By late afternoon, the spectacled leaf monkeys are beginning to wake up from the nap that took them through the heat of the day. The sun has now moved round, giving my subject beautiful backlighting. The halo of hairs around the head is particularly striking. For the first time in several hours, active feeding is resumed, and that also applied to myself. On the walk back to my hostel, I would pop into the local restaurant for dinner. By the time I got back, the small colony of bats in the roof were beginning to wake up and stir. Their first job was to have a quick wash, using their large tongues. Soon the whole colony is busily grooming. From their large eyes and the evidence of their droppings on the floor beneath, these are most likely to be fruit bats.